Welcome to the Outer Realm with MicheleDerocher and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by these guys, amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who have been a part of our journey for the last few years. We're so thankful for them. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his voice, his time, his music for the intro you just heard. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, thanks to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind our banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, but does phenomenal commission pieces of any sort. So tonight we're welcoming back one of my favorite people. Honestly, she's a riot. Dr. Rita Louise. We all love her. She's right to the point. She's a lot of fun, and she's going to be discussing her book. We've done this before years ago, and it really did well. I mean, she fast became a fan favorite. But her book is called The Dysfunctional Dance of the Empath and the Narcissist. And boy, have we not often had, a whole melee of that stuff in our lives at some point, just a whole lot of craziness. Yeah, right. That's what I say. So anyhow, I'm just sending her out a link. So bear with me, and then I'm going to get to everybody. Where are you? Rita, lovely Rita. Okay, here we go. All right, perfect. So, God, chat room's already filling up like crazy. You guys are like awesome. So we've got hello, Dolly. Oh, hello. And we've got, oh my God, hold on. Where am I going? You guys are all over the place. I'm just trying to find you all. There we are. Hey, Z-Sun, how are you? Hi, Mark. How are you? Oh my God, keep going. Hello, Janie. I know. Big get well wishes to Amelia. This thing is like a plague. It's just not relenting, and she's really struggling. So big hugs and lots of light there for sure. Folgers indeed. Yes. And hello, Guardian. Hello. Hey, Mark. How are you? Mark, I did get your emails. I'm running behind on everything. I will get back to you. I will, because I am interested. So just putting it out there. I don't want you to think I forgot about you at all. So am I missing anybody? No, we're just coming in. A lot of people are just chiming in. So for those who are just coming in, we are on one Facebook page. That's The Outer Realm. The show disappears after that, which means you can only catch it, of course, on YouTube or Rumble. Tonight, we are on, 3 different YouTubes, including our own. We are on X, we are on Rumble, and we are on Roku TV as well. So that's where you're going to find it after the fact. And okay, good. All right. So we're good to go. Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let the games begin. I know, we're good. I know. It's always a lot of fun with you. You never know where it's going to go. So how are you?
Off all week.
Yeah.
So the other times that I've been on your show, I've come on after my Thursday night live.
Yes.
Which makes for a really long evening.
Yes.
And so when we were talking yesterday, I'm like, oh, well, tomorrow's Thursday because I'm going to come on, you know, and I was like, I don't know that I can do that.
Yeah. I
I
know.
was
Please tell me it's not.
And I'm like,
Okay.
it's Wednesday. It's not even Thursday. You won't
I
just talk for an hour. So,
see, I am the bearer of good news, kind of.
that's right.
So it'd be so much fun. Amelia's still sick, and this topic just sets her on fire. So I'm thinking, all right, we booked this. Amelia's gonna be full of energy and pea and vinegar, ready to go. And she goes,
I'm not going to ask you questions.
she's down. Yeah, no.
Oh,
Yeah, she's sick. Everybody's sick with this bloody plague. So it's just like, you know, it's got a good hold on her. So she's working it. But I'm just like, that's okay. I'll take one for the team. I'm all about narcissists and empaths and you know, but I think she's got a real itch for them. So it's been much more entertaining. But we've covered this and like long ago, and you know, we have a whole other bigger audience, and you've done different things to it. It was so popular. People really resonate with this topic. Like it's almost like everybody at some point has come across something, you know, a narcissist and so on in their lives. For those who are highly empathic, it's a really bad mix. I mean, I know I'm married to one for a long time. he'll tell you it's reverse. I'm like, I don't know. That remains to be seen. But okay, you know, we get along better. It's just friends and anything else, which is usually the way. But you know, you wrote a book about this. So what prompted you right there? And you know what? I'm gonna step that up 1 second. Let me put this up. I had it ready to go. So if everything else will work with me, because you know technology is great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it's just not so great. There we go. There we go.
feeling you.
I'm gonna try and make this bigger. What the heck is this? There we
I don't
go.
know.
Better, right? So what prompted you? I guess I should say, what happened in your life to make you want to write about this topic?
Much better question.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I went there.
so I was in a relationship with a guy who I'm going to say had a drinking problem. Turned out he had a brain tumor. I mean, I think, and he was masking the symptoms with alcohol, but he was also a musician. So he, you know, so there was that aspect to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and everything really needed to revolve around him because he just couldn't navigate the world
Right.
at all.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I was done with it, you know, it really caused me to take a step back because the guy that I had dated prior to him was kind of parasitic and narcissistic and you know, but they come off as being so nice. You know, you first meet them. Okay, so the guy, the alcoholic guy, I mean, he and I still talk. We're still friends, you know. He actually is a very nice, kind man and, you know, just had way too many issues. How's that?
Right. We'll go with that.
Like,
for sure.
way too many issues.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm saying that out loud. I'm not going to say that. It's just true.
Nobody here, just us.
You know, okay, so I'm going to share this. So I was on the Fox Den with Gina Bellstrom.
Yes,
and
yes,
I
yes.
was
She's
talking
awesome.
about
She's great.
this narcissistic guy that I started dating, finished this book, and I said his name, and she stalked me. Well, you know, how do you find somebody's podcast unless you're stalking them?
Okay. True.
You know what I mean? It's not like I was on Tucker Carlson or something.
All right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay.
You know? So anyway, all right. So I get rid of this guy, but it really takes me to reflect because I really gave up a lot of my energy into this relationship on a lot of levels. And I came to realize that most of the relationships that I had been, both romantic and personal, were with people that were really narcissistic in their temperament.
Right.
And I decided that I needed to understand what was going on. What was I doing? What was going on? And what was this dynamic that was happening? Because when you talk about a relationship, like verbally, I always say relationships need to be 50-50. Now, in most relationships, it's 60-40, sometimes 70-30, kind of depending on the dynamic in the relationship. You know, or like maybe I do 70% of the cleaning, but you mow the lawn 70% of the time, you know, which I don't really want to do, you know. So, but when you're in a relationship with someone and you're giving the 70% and 80%, and now you're down because you're sick or you're overloaded at work and you can't give that much, and then they get mad at you and draw their energy. So now you're not even getting their crappy 10% or 20%. You're just getting attitude. It makes you go, what's going on? And why what I'm putting my energy in, and you see I'm struggling. So why can't you put your energy in to make it be more equitable?
Thank you. Yes.
So, you know, so I went and I did a deep dive. You know, like people sit there when they hear me talk about it, they think, oh, I wrote this memoir about my crappy relationships. But it wasn't. It was, well, I mean, okay, so.
I just love you. I always say it, but it's so true. Yeah.
You know, when I write, I'm going to say in general, you know, I try to offer a more scientific-y sounding voice, you know, and not necessarily share a whole lot of personal stories. The dang book, it's definitely not my voice.
Right. Right.
Which makes the book even better.
I read it. I hear your voice in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, but it was, you know, so I'm sitting there reading all these articles and listening to podcasts and learning about codependency and boundaries and this and that. And I just amass all of this information and then convert that into a book.
Yes.
You know, so, I mean, that's kind of my methodology of things. And then spirit jumps in. It's like, well, what about this? Well,
yes.
What about this? Well, wait a minute. What about this? You know, so it starts, I'm talking about love bombing, and it kind of like takes this little path over to here to somewhere else, you know, so.
Yes. So, I mean, what is exactly a narcissist for those who don't know, and why does it conflict with those of us who are so empathic?
So a narcissist is someone who is very self-serving. They think of me, and I. And if the me, and I isn't being satisfied, they let you know through a number of manipulation techniques. You know, they'll get angry at you, you know, and start putting you down and make you feel bad, so that now you'll comply. You know, it's kind of like, well, what do you mean you're not going to do that? Blah, 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 blah. You know, you just get around the house. So the he who shall remain nameless.
All right. I like that. You know who you are.
We were sitting there talking about money and stuff. And no. So he's living in my house for free. Okay, free. No rent.
Good.
Free.
Good.
And we're talking about money, and he said, well, I think I should be compensated for mowing the lawn.
Nice.
I
just smack him with a tuna? Who does that?
I looked at him, I said, but you live here. And then he just didn't say anything. And I said, you know, I cook dinner every day, or 80 to 90% of the times I cook dinner. Well, you make leftovers a lot, you know, so they'll take what you say and diminish it and minimize your effort, even though I still am up and getting things out of the refrigerator and reheating them or repurposing them and putting them on a plate and sticking the plate in front of him, which to me is making dinner.
Well, he's eating.
Well, yeah, that's you. And he got that for free too.
You know, it reminds me of a parent, because my former husband and I laughed about this after the fact, but I had to go out and I said, okay, you know, you have to watch the kids. I have to go out. He goes, I'm not a babysitter. I'm like, oh, I said, I keep forgetting it's just a damn sperm donor. And I walked out and he started looking at me. Well, of course, when I got back, we just laughed and laughed. He goes, I didn't know what to say to that, but you were right. At least he gave it to me. But I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm a babysitter. You're parenting. There's a difference. So it kind of reminds me, this guy's living in your home, living for free, heat, hydro, groceries, you know, hot water, bed, the whole 9 yards. So what is that?
Well, I mean,
yeah,
he was contributing in a different way. He was contributing, you know, like, during COVID. So we bought a boat. He would pay for all the expenses on the boat. You know, if we went out to dinner, he paid for that. You know what I mean? So he was like the entertainment wallet. So it didn't really bother me that much until we weren't going out that much. And business was slow, and I'm starting to financially freak out a little bit. And then he turns around and says, well, you should compensate me for mowing the yard. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, what do you say to that?
I know. Okay. Well, I would have put
kind of the beginning of the end right there. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's like Michael says, charge him rent, stop feeding the guy. You know, it's like, for sure, charge him rent, pay for the food. You're gonna pay half of like everything. It's so hard because sometimes when you're living in that moment, you just don't see it, right? Self-worth is absent for narcissistic people. Confidence is not present. They cannot exist without trauma bombing others to make up for what they lack. Ability, empathy, the ability to love. I always say it's they want to make people feel worse so they can elevate and feel better in that moment.
It makes them feel better and it pats them on the back.
Right.
So let's bring in the empath, but I have to sit there and quantify it. Well, first I'll explain what an empath is. So an empath is someone who's just very sensitive, you know, so like somebody that's a highly sensitive person, that's a pretty common term these days.
Right.
You know, can also be an empath, but it means that they feel things that are going on around them and are sensitive. You know, and my 2-second explanation is when you walk into a room and you feel the vibes in the room, or somebody walks up and, you know, you're like, okay, they're kind of creepy, you know, or whatever. Or my personal favorite, you go to Walmart, you have your list and you make it for about 5 minutes because you can't get out of there fast enough.
Right.
I mean, Walmart. I just can't do. I have friends that are like, oh yeah, I like walked around and looked around and shopped. I'm like,
that's a whole other world, isn't it?
Self-checkout.
I know, it's a whole other world. It's a whole other world.
Anyway, you know, and so it's not that you can't be an empath and interact with a narcissist, but empaths tend to be fairly wounded. And it is the wounding that helps enhance their sensitivity. And so as an example, so when I was putting the book together, I wanted to do a survey to just see what came out of it because I had my theory. And on Facebook, there's a group that's like empaths surviving narcissistic abuse, something like that. And so I did a poll and I said, you know, how many of you come from a history of trauma that got involved with the narcissist? Over 85%. And I had over 1,300 respondents to this survey. You know,
that's crazy.
And the other way smaller group, and it was over 85%, came from a family that was very open. You know, and the parents were tarot readers, and you know they came into that
free spirits.
Yeah,
free spirits, right?
You know. But if you think about it, so if you have a narcissistic parent, if you have an alcoholic parent, if you have an abusive parent, and you hear them walking down the hallway in the house, every little cat hair stands on end, waiting for them to walk past your door.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have just extended your feeling presence into that space. Well, if you don't move out till you're 18, you have 18 years of practice.
Yes. Yeah. That's
But
heavy.
you also have all the wounding that comes from living in that toxic environment. So when you grow up, so then there's the whole toxic environment thing. So when you grow up in a toxic environment, you meet a narcissist, they love bomb you. It's like you just want to be loved. You want somebody to love you. They're like, oh my God, you're the best thing. Let's get married next week.
It's very clingy. Yeah. And yeah.
You're my soulmate. But they make you feel that they're being sincere. They make you feel like you are their one and only true love on the whole planet. And they hook you, and part of that hooking is messing with your biochemistry, which we can go into if you want.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a whole separate, it's part of the love of the trauma bonding category. But it messes with your hormonal regulation. And after a while, it's, because you're used to being treated like crap and having people say mean things to you or ignore you or whatever your family dynamic is, it's like you're used to it. So, it's the enemy that I know. So, and so they tend to stick around. Now, this is something that I did on a very conscious level. So if the guy that I was with, I brought this strategy in. I mean, I can't even tell you who it was. With my husband in the and so the strategy that I adopted, because I was going to the Berkeley Psychic Institute and I was really learning how to like assess my own inner energy on a more conscious level. And learn how to recognize and feel other people's energy. Not that I didn't, but I could sit there and consciously interact with it.
Right.
So something would happen and he would get upset. And so he would get upset. Now my energy field, because I'm sensitive, is all callywampered. But that's sitting there triggering off all my negative programming. It's like, oh, he doesn't love me, blah, blah, blah. So I would end up going into this little death spiral thing. And what I thought would be the remedy would be to sit there and be nice to him and kowtow or people please or fix his energy. Now he doesn't have bad energy, which means I don't have to have bad energy. Did that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. It does. Yeah.
So it worked. It was a great strategy, except I was doing all the work and nothing ever got fixed. And so it took me a long time to figure out that wasn't a good strategy.
That's a tough one. Quick question. Will a narcissist sometimes completely ignore you and never talk to you again?
Yep. That's called the silent treatment. So something happens and they just stop talking to you, or you get one-word answers, or they lock themselves up in their room, or they ghost you until they want something from you again. And then they'll reappear. And they use that as a form of punishment to make you want to know, well, what did I do? What's going on? I mean, it really kind of puts you in your head going, I don't get it. I don't get it.
But I mean, aren't people on average guilty of that to a degree? Like when you have, I mean, for me, we had an agreement in place. Cooler heads prevail. If there's something going on, let's just walk away, reevaluate. And most of the time that worked, but it took a long time to get to that point. And I mean, there's a reason it's a former, but there were just times where going against the grain, and I think everybody sort of goes out of character, or narcissist is very in character. But I mean, if I just don't feel it's a proper time to talk because it's not going to go anywhere, I'm going to just shut the heck up and just go to my little corner until it's safe to come out. So if you're not in the ring at the moment, it takes two.
That's a different strategy.
Okay.
And so what it sounds like you're talking about, so there's some kind of interaction that happened, and now you're feeling triggered, and your internal emotional space is upset. And it is a very appropriate strategy to sit there and go in the other room and maybe do some breathing or whatever. And a emotionally healthy way of navigating that is saying, babe, I'm a little upset right now and I just need to have some space. And let's talk about this in an hour or talk about this in the morning. Now there's communication, and I'm not locking you out.
Right.
I'm giving you the information that I need a little space. But narcissists will never do that. They won't say it. They just
don't respect that space factor.
Well, they don't respect you, that you might be hurting.
I don't even think they respect themselves. Michael says, my mother used to tell me not to date anybody with more problems than my own, right? That's the words to live by. Seriously. But I definitely agree with that. So do you think some of that behavior just comes from, because in some of the ones that I know, and some just on a very generic level, and I know in his case, my former, there was a degree of child abuse. And it doesn't have to be a physical. In this case, I think, he'd mentioned it was both. But I think it's just even that over-controlling parent or parents, and, the child is like afraid to speak even. And then you end up in a situation where this comes in through life, and you're going to go one way or the other, right?
So it can happen that as the over-controlled child grows up, now they just start behaving like the parent, the over-controlling, over-dominant parent.
Right.
The more common thing is that they're a child who really there's no boundaries put on them. So they want to do something, they have a temper tantrum. So I have 2 stepkids. They're my kids. And I have grandbabies. Yay!
The best.
And, so when I started seeing their narcissistic dad, so I took the younger one with me to Walmart. I was going to Walmart, there was something I had to get, and it was like, okay, do you want to go with me? Because I was trying to create a relationship with them. And so we wandered around because he was like 8, and we're wandering around Walmart, just, spending some quality time together. And we go through the toy aisle, and he's like, well, can I get something? And I was broke, and I'm like, if you can find something for like $5 or less, we're good. I go, but if it's over $5, I can't do it.
You're in the right place for that. That worked out, especially back in the day.
And he wanted something that was like $15-$20, and I'm like, sorry, dude, I just can't do it. And of course, there's no tag on anything, there's no label, so all the way up at the register, when we find out too much, I can't do it. And he literally went and sat on the floor next to the register and started to cry. 8 years old, sitting on the floor in Walmart. And I looked at him and I'm like, I don't know what that's about, but
not going to work here.
It ain't working, and I'm going to get my stuff and I'm going to go, and you can come if you want, or you can sit there and cry. But but they have that history, well, I won't talk to you. I'll sit there and cry. I'll have a temper tantrum. I'll nag you to death until I'll yell at you and get angry,
Oh,
till you back off and remit and give me what I want.
right. That goes into adulthood.
Yes.
Throwing themselves on the floor and stuff. Having a moment. Sorry.
But it's a manipulation technique.
Mm-hmm.
To get somebody to do something they don't want to do.
Oh, I've seen coffee tables fly out through patio doors. I've seen things, and I just walk in. It's like, I walk out. I don't want to go there. I'm just like, that's ridiculous. I just came in and it's just like, well, that's like $3.50 right down the tube. Thank you for that. You try to make light of it because otherwise you're feeding into that whole cycle, which of course you don't want to be a part of. Alan makes, he's got a question, I guess. He says, most empaths won't put up with the BS that narcissists bring to the table. I'm a bit confused as to how, he says in the next line, how the two are connected.
I don't agree with you. And what I said, it's the wounded empath. Anybody
right.
that's wounded.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've been an empath my whole life. I've been a people pleaser my whole life. I've kissed a lot of ass. I've kissed a lot of guy ass.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
I didn't say the hairy part. I just said ass. Come on.
Right. Worse has been said on this show. Believe me.
Right. But what it really comes down to is having boundaries, having a certain amount of self-love, having self-esteem, having self-worth for yourself. And if all of those things are lacking, where if you come from a family, or grow up with childhood trauma or experienced a lot of trauma, those things are never taught to you. And you just don't know how to, it's just not part of your world, and it's something you have to teach you. I mean, if you have a parent who isn't there for you or is constantly criticizing you, it's like you're going to grow up and think that you're just screwed up, and you have to teach yourself because they are not uplifting and energizing you for greatness.
So, and he carried on the question to what is a wounded empath? And the empath knows how to protect him or herself. I don't know.
I don't agree with that either, Alan. You look very young.
So, you're just talking about, I've been scorned by the narcissist, darn it. No, I think that, I think sometimes people are very empathic. See, Alan, you understand what being an empath is. There are people who are very sensitive. They're empathic, but they have no idea they're actually empathic, and that their energy is clashing with a more aggressive, a more aggressive energy, being someone who is narcissistic. And you just don't sometimes realize right away until you are full on into this relationship. And you realize you're not the person I actually started out this relationship with. What happened?
It's because they changed. So when I
married
husband number 4, we were married a month. Okay, so I was number 6 for him. And all of his past marriages were with narcissists.
Yeah.
And after a month, we're in the living room and he gives me a hug and he goes, well, I'm waiting. And I'm like, waiting for what? And he goes, well, I'm waiting for you to change. And I'm like, change how? He goes, well, that's how it's been. It's like, you're this great person, we get married, and then, after a month or two, you change into this bitch. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I might not put makeup on every day, but I'm kind of like a one size fits all kind of gal. Like what you see is what you get. So
yeah,
not really much happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that pretty much makes sense. I think expectations have a lot to do with it. But I mean, you could go years with someone, because my former is definitely wounded, very, very wounded, never properly counseled, but the narcissistic with him was definitely something that came from trauma in childhood, but somebody desperately trying to break that cycle but couldn't.
Well,
Because I don't think anybody was harder on himself at times than him with it, but I just don't think he knew how to break the cycle.
And the fact that he would be even open or willing to possibly think there was something wrong. You know, when I first released the Dysfunctional Dance book, people were like, well, do you think Narcissists would read it? And I'm like, no. And they were like, why? I go, because there's not anything wrong with them. So why would they need to fix it? Okay, he who shall not be named. The last chapter of the book talks about me meeting him and stuff, which I read it after the fact, and I'm like, man, this was like one giant red flag. It was one giant red flag. So if you want to see red flags that are being totally ignored, read that chapter. But he had to go find himself. So he was the second relationship that I was in that they had to go find themselves, which the relationship ended. But once he said he had to go find himself, I was like, bye, I already know where this is going. So he took a copy of the book because maybe he was thinking I was a narcissist. I don't really know. I don't know what he was thinking. But he took a copy of the book and apparently read it and said, nope, I'm good. Because he had friends that were even more narcissistic than he was.
Did he recognize his own narcissism?
No.
Oh, see, so he figured he's get the book for his friends.
But
he recognized it in other people.
And see some of his friends.
Yeah.
That I was like, I don't like this guy. He's way too narcissistic. Blah blah blah. And he was able to recognize it. I love you too, Alan. You know, and he was able to recognize that his friend was really narcissistic,
right?
But he wasn't narcissistic.
So yeah, he didn't recognize it in himself, but recognized it in other people. So
they, you know, they wear a mask. There's all of these insecurities inside that they have, you know, and you know, sometimes they have a lot of trauma, like he shall not be named. Really, you know, he was very Pollyanna, you know, and they tend to be that way, very Pollyanna. But he would sit there and talk about like this relationship that he had and it didn't work out. And, you know, and it's like only one, you know, and then he had issues and kind of got fired from a job. It was for him, a very big deal, but it's kind of like, is this all you got? I mean, I could literally write a whole book of just the crap that's happened to me in my life and the stuff I've overcome in my life. And I'm like, and you got these three things that you're just going to come back to these three things. It's like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Don't care. No,
it's just my experience. Yeah. Let's have people crap on you a lot. And then, you'll then come back and talk to me about it.
So let's talk about some of those signs. What should people be looking for? These red flags to avoid, especially if you are, you know, empathic and very sensitive to energies or just sensitive in general.
Well, you know, but they're sensitive to energy. I mean, that was the angle I took in this book. But if you're somebody who has the need to not be alone or need to feel loved, and it doesn't really matter where that love is coming from, that opens the door for the toxic. It's like you're walking around with a neon sign saying, hey, I'm vulnerable, you know, because they really do prey on vulnerable people. You know, so one of the red flags is, you know, they love bomb you, you know, they make you feel really good. And, you know, that you're the apple of their eye, you know, and you can do no wrong and you're their soulmate and you have all of these interests in common and they're going to take care of you. Like everything that's on your wish list, it's like check, 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 check. You know, and then they do something called future faking where they'll talk about, oh, well, they start like talking about marriage, or they talk about things in the future that really require you to be a couple. I mean, not necessarily married. To sit there to get your buy-in, to sit there to let you believe that they want to have this future with you. You know, and so again, it's part of this kind of deception of, I want to have a life with you. And, you know, now we're talking about the future, and we're creating this thing, you know, but really they just want to live in your house for free.
Charge you to cut the grass. Man, that's a rough go. Right. Yeah. Right.
You know, and that will last, you know, like you'll see little pieces of the other person here or there when situations happen, but they keep that mask up. They keep that facade up for as long as they can. Sometimes it can be for 6 months. Sometimes it can be for a couple of years. If you live with them, it's a lot harder because they're around you all the time. But if you don't live together, they only have to put that facade on the weekend or whenever they're around you, which is a lot more doable to do.
Right.
You know, but once they have you locked in, it's like, then everything can change, you know, and this sounds really terrible, but I have heard stories of women who, I'm not going to say they intentionally get pregnant, but they get pregnant before they're married. And now the guy gets pressured kind of into marrying them. Well, now they're stuck because now they have this wife and baby, you know, or, you know, pressured you into getting married, or like, again, he who shall not be named, got me to buy a boat with him, you know, so now we have this connection.
Yes.
Stuff. The boy's dad, it's like he was living in a rental. I had sold my house in a different state, and so I wanted to buy a house, and so I ended up buying a house where he wanted to live, you know, so now I'm in this house that I can't afford with him and his kids in a town I really didn't want to live in, you know, so now I'm stuck.
Yes. Which is what they want, that vulnerability.
That's what they want, because it makes it, and that's when the mask starts to come off. And that's when you find out who they really are, but you're kind of trapped, you know, and it can be a really hard thing to stop and say, this isn't working for me. I mean, I remember, you know, when he had to go find himself, I kicked him out of the house. Well, okay, he had to go find himself, and he had texted this woman that we knew from online. It's like Steele's kiss. But it was just a friendly peck on the cheek. I'm like, you're so full of crap. It's like, I know what that's all about. So and then I found the cell phone bills, 3,000 texts in a month. Yeah, that's all it was about.
Finding himself. Yeah.
By living in the other room.
Right.
And, you know, but it was easier for me to worry about, how am I going to pay all the utilities and the mortgage and the this and this and this myself? You know, I can get a roommate. I can do this. I can do this. I mean, I ended up selling the house and downsized. But I was free. And I wasn't dealing with the, why are you texting this woman and then lying to, you know, I mean, you know, it got rid of all of that. And, you know, then I just had to take care of myself. And that was just so much easier. And, you know,
it's tough. Not everybody, you're lucky that you own that house so you could sell it. You know, you're lucky that you could walk away despite with all of that, because no, nobody should have to put up with that. You know, so
it's not easy. I really feel for women in particular who they get into these relationships, they get pregnant, they have babies. Now the mask is off, but the husband doesn't really want them to work. So they have no career.
The control.
And now they have babies, and they are in an untenable situation with no place to go, no money, no resources. Those are the women that my heart goes out to.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I mean, people sit there and say, well, you should go to a shelter. I mean, you know, that's part of the reason that some women stay in abusive relationships, because they have nowhere else to go.
So let's flip it around. What about a guy in that situation who is the narcissist ends up being the female, and the guy's the one trapped in there going, what the heck did I just get into? Because sometimes, you know, you think sure the guy can just leave, but I mean, women are really emotional besides that. Like, we're emotional creatures. So you just like, oh hell no, I'm just gonna make your life a living hell. And they just stalk the guy, they torment the guy. I mean, like, what do you do in that situation? Who tends to be the narcissist more often, men or women? Like,
I don't have an answer for that.
right.
You know, I mean, I personally hear more stories from women.
Okay.
You know, I don't think men necessarily share that much, but there's some really yucky women out there that, you know, without a doubt.
Yeah.
You know, I think men will put up with it for as long as they can. You know, and a lot of the times they will back their energy out of the relationship you know, where they just become basically roommates. And then the narcissist, because the narcissist needs to feed, the narcissist needs attention, they need your attention, they need your energy, because they're energy vampires. You know, if there's not anything to suck off of you, they'll go find it somewhere else. And so if they're a true narcissist, female also, they'll go find somebody else to go suck off of. And so I think a lot of times those relationships will end because of infidelity.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's a whole other cycle. Yeah.
You know, and so it's just, you know, it's easier for a guy to walk away, you know, if they are financially independent. You know, then, I mean.
So I have to ask this because Wayne came up and said, you know, my mother was an extreme narcissist and ended up in a relationship where he ended it and got saddled with $40K of this person's debt. So do people who have narcissistic parents, one or the other or both, tend to seek out people of that same personality or demeanor? As opposed to the fight or flight, like, you know, I'd be out of Dodge. Do they just tend to gravitate towards the same type of people?
Yes. I mean, because can you imagine taking two people that are narcissistic, that are so self-centered, and put them in the same room together? It's like, who's going to take care of who? You know, and during the love bombing stage, they might take care of each other, but it's just a matter of time. So I have a friend, and I really had to consider this in my own situation, that you can be in a relationship with someone, but because of your history, that the relationship could start off equal at one point in time, but then the dynamic and the roles start to shift, where it starts out, it's kind of 50-50, but as time goes on, it's like you train the other person that I'm going to take care of you, you know, and you know, and it changes the dynamic. And it's not necessarily that the person's a narcissist, but the roles have changed. Now, in those situations, it can be fixed. You know, it can be readjusted, and because that's not really what they want. It's just, but from a perceptual level, you know, from like an internal level, it can see like, God, you know, he was really nice, but now he's a jerk. You know, but it might be that you trained him to be a jerk.
Nice.
But that was, it took me a lot of thinking about, is that even possible? But it is. I can see that, and I can see where, you know, I'm half Jewish. You know, I got that like Jewish mother thing going on. You know, so it's like I always got dinner. You know, there are things that I do that I just do because it's just what I do. And so after a while, you get used to me doing those things. And so when I don't want to do those things anymore, I can see where you would get a little cranky. But I've trained you to expect me to do those things.
Right.
You know, and that's where it starts becoming that bit of a rub. But again, it's like if you are emotionally intelligent enough and open enough, you know, conversations can happen and that dynamic can be reset. You know, or a conversation be had where, you know, you say, you know, it's like, you know, I love you and I would like to cook dinner every day, but I don't want to right now.
Right. Not going to be a thing. Yeah. That's a really tough one. I've known people. Yeah. I mean, I know people who, you know, when you're outside the box, it is so easy to look inside the box and say, what the hell were you thinking? Oh, wait, you're not thinking. Some people, you can paint it black and white. It can be so obvious. Everybody sees it. Whole family is trying to tell you. Your friends are trying to tell you, you know, and for some reason, it's like they just don't always see it. So how do you break through to somebody like that? Because I know people right now in that situation, and all you can do is sit on the sidelines. And it's like, did you not see what, you know, other people around you who you know have been through? Like, do you not see this in yourself? I get that the heart wants what the heart wants. You know, some of these people do a really good job at just anchoring the other person in.
And I think with people like that, it's not about talking at them.
Right.
It's about helping them to recognize what's going on in them. It's like, okay, so they just did this thing that you're looking at it going, oh my God, that was terrible. How could you do that? And instead of sitting there going, well, didn't you just see what he did? Go, well, shift it and go, okay, so he did that, but now how are you feeling? You know, and making it so that they can recognize the discord they're feeling inside. Because usually when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're walking around hurt or scared or lonely or feeling abandoned or feeling unimportant. There's some negative core belief being activated. By it. You know, and so if you can help them become more emotionally aware of what's going on inside, then the hope is it'll turn the light bulb on in there. Because once you sit there and realize, like, hey, this guy's been screwing me over for 15 years, it can become pretty freaking easy to say, you know what? Hasta la vista, baby, and I'm walking out the door.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but there has to be that awareness. And so, again, instead of just sitting there going, don't you see what's going on? It helping them to recognize what's going on inside of them and how they're feeling. And like, doesn't that bother you? You know, doesn't that hurt your feelings?
Yeah. Yeah. Two comments. In my opinion, I like that. It takes some years to recognize it, but once you know what the red flags are, especially when they're all over the place, it's up to us as survivors to work through it and grow. And Alan states, Alan's sort of like, we're going to go good cop, bad cop. Alan's like, well, it's what if sometimes it's all the people around you who are simply wrong and you have to follow your own reality, which I agree to a degree. Absolutely. Is the earth round or flat? Depends on your perspective. Science isn't fixed.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to in my opinions comment. Can you put that one back?
Yeah, right here, right here. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to respond to that. So in my opinion, it can take your whole freaking lifetime. So,
right.
So I'm going to throw this one up. So this is my other book that I wrote after the Dysfunctional Dance of the Empath and Narcissist book. And just for you, in my opinion, is called Dang, It Was Me All Along. Because it took me that long to realize that what I was experiencing was red flags.
Right.
What I needed to do to work through my own stuff to sit there and go, okay, that's a red flag, and you get a 3-flag chance. You
Mhm.
do it once, you're in purgatory. You
Mhm.
do it twice, now you're standing at the door, and you do it the third time, and you're gone. That's the Rita policy. You know, I made a list. These are the red flags, and this is the policy that goes with it. It's a 3-strike rule, unless it's a really bad one. You know?
Just, I agree with you, girl. Learning at 62, moving through, navigating as I go. Yes, yes, yes. Question. Mark, will the narcissist play victim and put all the blame on the other person?
Well, that is their other major coping technique, manipulation technique, is playing the victim card. Oh, well, I would contribute, but nobody wants to hire me, as they sit on their computer playing text twist 15 hours a day, not helping clean around the house, not doing anything to contribute while you're going to school and working a job and running a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I'm looking for a job. It's like,
Can you find an online job? You're on the wrong website. I don't know. Texas Hold'em, something. Bring something in. Yeah. I totally understand that. I totally understand that. And I mean, it's hard for people who are very empathic. I know people are very empathic. Now, on the flip side of things, sometimes you have empathic people who are just so sensitive and emotional that they think everybody's out to get them. Like, okay, well, I guess I've played my due course. I'm not needed. This is that's the end of this. That's the end of that. Or, I give and I give. I'm not appreciated. But sometimes it doesn't go too far. And it's like you say, dang, it was me all along. Was
but
it?
I'm going to throw something out for you to consider.
Okay, yeah. I'm just playing devil's advocate. That's all.
No. But
I got a list over here that I'm trying to get through.
I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
My question is that person really sensitive, or are they a drama queen saying they're sensitive, and really they're a narcissist in disguise?
So that's a like a big mix of what the hell?
Because a person that's sensitive can be empathic with somebody else, and can feel their feelings. But if it's always about me and my drama, it's like, oh, well, what they did upset me. It's like, no, you're not emotionally regulated, and you're using your emotional dysregulation to control the energy in this space, which is a narcissistic tactic.
But some people don't even realize that they're dramatic. Like, they don't see that just as much as a narcissist doesn't see that they're a narcissist.
Just like the empath might not realize they're sensitive.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. A covert narc dramatic thought she was attacked everywhere. Oh. Yeah. So, I mean, that makes it really hard, because you got these clashing personalities, that are just butting heads. And meanwhile, you could be dealing with two entirely. I mean, maybe the other partner, and I don't just mean a female. I mean, a guy could just be, like, it was funny because even like I said with my former, he was very dramatic. And you'd always say, who's a drama queen in the house? The kids would all go point to their dad. I'm like, that's right. It's like it seems to go hand in hand in some things, but sometimes it is the guy who's on the flip side of that as well, right? Yeah. So I know someone that was like that.
Drama queens tend to be pretty narcissistic,
right?
And they might play the victim card, like the whole world out to get me, or it's so sad. Well, I would have a career, but, and then they blame somebody because they didn't get out from in front of their computer playing computer games. It's like, well, it ain't their fault. It's your fault because you did nothing.
Nice. So
whatever.
So, I mean, you're looking at a really difficult formula between two different ends of the spectrum. Can people like this actually find their way to having a functional relationship?
If they are both committed to doing it, and how, narcissism, just like empathy, or trauma or whatever, is all on a scale, and how willing are the two people willing to work with each other to bring it into the middle and to open up communication lines and to be honest and be real. I think with someone who tends to be more empathic or wounded, they tend to be much more open and interested in self-healing because there's a deep understanding that there's something not right. In most cases, they might not know what it is, but they can sense on some level their brokenness. Some people that are narcissistic might recognize, or they might just truly, truly love the person that they're with and are willing. And that's the big word, are willing to try to change. What I have read, and okay, so in the DCSM, which is the Diagnostic Mental Health Manual, where narcissistic personality disorder does exist, there are certain markers that, if you do these things, and you have to get like 5 out of 10, I don't know, there's some criteria to be identified as having narcissistic personality disorder. And so I've heard stories, not a lot, but stories of couples working together and helping the narcissistic partner reduce certain behaviors so that they went from having 5 characteristics down to 3 or 2, but it's really about relearning and reprocessing and doing therapy and changing who you are. I mean, it's kind of like an alcoholic, it's like there are people that will sit there and say they're going to change, and we'll go to therapy once.
And that's it.
And then that's it.
I did it. Yeah.
And, and I think it is rarer for individuals like that are really interested in making that level of commitment. It takes work. And one of the things that I've kind of seen about narcissists, they're kind of lazy because you should be like peeling grapes for them and fanning them because they're great. And, they're on this pedestal and you should be worshiping them. So why should they have to work? It's your job to work. Do you know that?
That's a pretty extreme. That's a really, I guess you get some that are really worse than others. Because it would be hard for narcissists to realize they've had a problem.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Yeah. CL, by the way, is one of our hosts here on the network called the Gateway Podcast, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. So she's a peach. We love her. But so, gosh, okay. So Mark says the same thing. It's funny because Mark has hinted at stuff like this before. And Mark has a lot of cats. I think Mark's just happier with his cats. Yeah.
Mark, I have a girlfriend, Deb. She has a lot of cats. She don't want a guy either. Maybe you guys need to hook up.
Yeah, right. I know.
So
yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because women that have had, and even guys that have had a lot of toxic relationships, tend to like hang around each other. And one of the other characteristics that you tend to find is that they tend to be the black sheeps of their family.
Right.
I'm being brutal.
Narcissist is a black sheep of the family?
Huh?
You mean the narcissist is a black sheep?
No. The one who ends up with the narcissist.
Oh, the ones who ends up with the narcissist. That explains a lot. I'm a complete freaking I am a black sheep rebel. And look,
but usually the black
years
like you're bad, you're wrong, don't do that.
Like that.
You're supposed to be this way. And then you marry that personality that's telling you you're bad, you're wrong, and you put up with it because you're the black sheep. Anyway, I'm going to take your details, Mark.
That's it. There we go. Mark's a team player. So, I mean, for me, I am always a person that's gone against the grain, but which was going to be one of my next questions was how does a narcissist and somebody who's so headstrong, who puts up with no BS, I mean, that's got to be from my perspective, I could tell you it ends badly, but you got to have a bit of common sense as you go through it. But I mean, there's got to be a lot of that, aren't we? Don't we all have a little bit of narcissism in us?
I mean, we all have a bit of narcissism, but
Yeah.
you know, with writing this book and having people share their stories with me and whatever, I unofficially started the Dumb Girls Club, and I was actually going to make a Facebook group called the Dumb Girls Club.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I found, and I thought this was really interesting, was some of the most brilliant, self-confident, self-assured women I know make the worst relationship choices.
Really?
I'm serious.
Damn.
I'm serious. That's the Dumb Girls Club. You know,
Right.
and I on something that's insulting. It's like, no, I am talking about brilliant women who find the rotten apple at the bottom of the barrel
Right.
every time.
Mhm.
Every time.
Right. So does that come from like our damage, like as a woman who's like that?
I don't, you know, I've never really thought
Should write a
about
book about it. Start with me.
it. Yeah, the Dumb Girls Club. I thought that would be a great title, though.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
you know, I could do an anthology of like all my friends' stories. And, you know, and then I have guys that like want honorary admission into the Dumb Girls Club. They're like, we want to be part of the club, but we're not girls. It's like
Well, I know.
honorary member.
Yeah. The bad boy effect. There we go. Truth. Truth. Okay. So comments. Wayne says, I know people from my past that once in therapy was suggested that the therapist states that the problem lies with the significant other, not the one, you know, I know this story. The therapy session comes to an abrupt end. So in this case, you know, the guy gets hauled into to therapy, is point, finger point, and the therapist says, no, I want to start seeing you one-on-one to the wife, and no more. Therapy just ends, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the narcissistic person, yeah. Or you can go to couples therapy, and then you, the empath, can be pointed to as the one that is broken, and you need to fix yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Michelle, I mean, we know each other fairly well.
Yes, I think so.
Well, no, but I'm going to make, you know, so this was told me that I was a controlling person.
You're a controlling person?
That's what I've been told by partners, that I was a controlling person.
I think you're a pretty easygoing person. If you pull out the control card, it's usually for a pretty good reason, I would think.
You know, but I mean, you know, but you have people sit there and tell you you're controlling. Now, granted, I have standards, you know, like you're not going to leave the crap laying around my house all the time, you know, and I have this expectation that, you know, the dishes get washed at least every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
That's controlling.
Yes.
You know, and so, I mean, I personally went in therapy, and, you know, that was the issue, that I was too controlling, and the counselor bought it and wanted me to make changes. And it's like, I've been being walked on. I just supported this man for 7 years playing freaking text twist and not cleaning anything, leaving messes everywhere. And I'm the controlling one.
See, that's the best part is, you know, they go to counseling, and then they give information. So the counselor's like completely, you know, because it's an individual, you know, person goes to counseling and comes back. It was a pretty funny story, actually, because it's, again, my former goes, well, my counselor says this, and this. So, you know, I don't want to obviously put this all out there, but I basically had a folder, and he goes, well, you know, we're going to have to do this together, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all your shit stems from childhood. Get that settled. I'll go counseling. So I come down one day. I'm just fed up. I got a folder And he goes, what's that? I goes, my notes. And he goes, what do you mean your notes? I got my notes. And he goes, what are you doing with them? Going to counseling. I never got asked again to go to counseling because I realized, oh, you didn't tell her everything. I see. But I had fun with it. That folder was just gold, you know. Okay, I'm going to come back up before we get too far ahead. What's sad is that there needs to be deep trauma for them to become this way. Early childhood.
I agree. Yeah.
And goes on to say, doctor, I work every day to make sure that there are no fleas, as I cherish my daughter.
Okay, so in my opinion, true story. The text twist guy.
Yeah.
So, all right. So he didn't want me to like have to compensate him to mow the lawn. He just didn't mow the lawn. And I will clean. I don't like doing yard work. You know what I mean? I will clean a toilet. And I really didn't know how to like use the lawnmower, you know? And my office was a windowed room that was added onto the house, which looked into the backyard. So do you know how often I said this to my girlfriend last night? She just looked at me like, you're kidding me. So do you know where the line was for getting the lawn mowed? Like where the hammer came down? Just throw out a wild guess of how long the grass was.
A foot.
So when I couldn't see my toy poodle on the far side of the yard, who was probably about 8 inches tall, because the grass overshadowed her body, the grass had to be cut. I mean, that's for a month. Well, she kind of liked it because it was like the great outdoors of leaping through the grass. But when I couldn't see her anymore, it was like, yeah, that ain't working for me.
That's not a good thing. Poor dog. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. She goes, yeah, it's exhausting.
Even talking about it is exhausting.
I know. I know. Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, I have to say though, I think, how does one bounce back from spending, I mean, you know, a year, 2 years, decades with somebody like that? How do you actually recover from something like that to the point where some people just gravitate to this is just who they seem to end up with all the freaking time? It is like, some people actually say, well, my family was like that, and I just seem to gravitate to the same sort of individual.
But I think that the person just really never did any healing.
Yes.
You know? And I feel like a lot of the times people that the bigger issue for, and I'll say the empath, well, for the narcissist too. I mean, there are so many stories you hear of narcissistic individuals. They're in a long-term relationship. They're with some man or woman for 5 years, 10 years dating, and something happens and they split up, and then the partner gets married in like 3 months to somebody else. It's like, where do they even meet these people? You know, or less than a year. I mean, it's like, oh, so you were all in love with me and now you married somebody else? You know, anyway, I think a big thing is you have to become comfortable with being with yourself and being alone. You know, one of the things that I had as part of my healing, you know, because I would sit there and be like, well, one of the things that I did was no online dating, because that just makes that so much easier.
That's like a crapshoot. Yeah.
You know, but I just had to make the commitment to myself that I'm not going to date. You know, I'm just going to hang out. And it also had to be where I had to deal with my loneliness. Like, what am I going to do with myself? Because I need to have it where if things aren't working, that I can walk away and be content with myself and my life. Even if content with myself and my life is living in my house with 10 cats
Mark.
And
It's just Mark's got his cats. Yeah. That would be me with my chihuahuas.
you know, and but if you can sit there and be content with that and still find happiness with that,
Yeah.
then there's no person that can control you and emotionally manipulate you to stay, including yourself.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes.
I mean, usually we're our worst enemies, and it's the loneliness, you know, or the fear of abandonment that will cause us to go out and seek another partner.
Yeah. I mean, you get some people who they can't take that in between by themselves. There has to be somebody waiting, you know, out of one into another. There is no self-healing time. In my opinion.
The same person.
Oh, for sure. As the doctor says, it's a lifelong healing. It's like being with an alcoholic. If they don't get help and you don't get help, you're stuck there as a survivor. I will say single and safe. Yes. But I love CL's comment. I can write a book about dating apps.
and Mark.
Right. Yeah.
So I have been dating a wonderful man.
No.
A wonderful man.
You bit the bullet.
Over a year and a half.
Woo! Good for you.
Doesn't live with me.
Yeah.
One of my rules was he couldn't live in my town. You know, I didn't want to see him every day. You know, so he lives about a half hour away, which is not that far, but not next door. So that was good, you know. And so, but here's the interesting thing. He is a huge people pleaser. Huge.
Nice.
You know, and so like even today, so he had this thing going on with his shoulder. And I went to the chiropractor. My chiropractor has a class 4 laser, which I was getting a laser treatment on my ear, which is why I wasn't feeling very good.
Yes.
And so I was asking because the laser helps reduce inflammation in the body. And so I was asking because he's not one of their patients, can he just come in and do the laser therapy without going to see the chiropractor?
Right.
And so I was asking how much it costs. And, you know, so I was giving him that information. And I said, well, you know, I wonder if the initial visit, because you had to do like a little mini initial consult, that was $50. I said, well, I wonder if your insurance will cover that, because it wouldn't cover the laser at all.
Yeah.
And so I told him that, and I said, well, I'll call. And I called, and I found out that it wasn't going to cover it, you know, that consult. Fine. So I messaged him. It's like, okay, so I found out it's not going to cover. And he was like, well, you didn't need to do that. And it's like, why? He goes, you went above and beyond. I mean,
whoa, fighting words.
No, but I just, you know, so my response to the text was, you would have done the exact same thing. Because he would have. If there was a piece of information that he didn't know, he would have been on the phone and got that piece of information. You know, because that's how he flies. That's how I fly. And it's just been great. So all you people that keep finding narcissists, just look for the freaking people pleasers in the crowd, because it is so much better.
less work.
No, it's because you sit there. There was a meme, and it was like, 2 plants, I'll pour water on you and you pour water on me, and we'll both grow. You know, and so it really is this reciprocal thing of energy, you know, and it just makes it work so much better, because both people are willing, and it makes it be easier, because now I really only have to do 50%, you know, and like I had that ear thing going on. I was not feeling good. And I went to get up out of bed, and he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I was going to go. And he goes, turn around, go put your ass back in bed. And he went and made me breakfast. Put a movie on for me. Out in the room with me. because that's
Yeah.
how it was. But I would do the same thing,
Yes.
so
I love that. I love that because that's what a relationship is. You do for one another. And you just there for one another, and you work stuff out,
but when you're with a narcissist, you do, and they take, and they don't reciprocate.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's where the rub is. They might start with the reciprocation, but it always ends up with the not reciprocation.
Or a reciprocation, but a reward me for it, validate that I've done it. There's,
That's not a
did I not do a good thing? Yeah, right.
But that's not an honest reciprocation.
No, but to them it is,
Who cares what they think? Because now you're still having to give them something for them doing something versus they, there's a big difference between I'm doing this in a transitional way, transactional, like I'll do this and you'll say, good boy. Really, good boy, versus I want to do this thing for you. I genuinely want to do this thing to make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
You genuinely want to do this thing to make me happy, not out of obligation, not out of you're demanding it, but I want to. And there's just such a good feeling when you give it. And if you're a people pleaser, it's really hard to receive it. I've been working on him about that a lot. It's like, can't I just sit there and cook you dinner? Like, he's really bad. I will go and I don't know, buy a freaking chicken to make for dinner and bring it to his house to make dinner. And he's like, well, here's $5 for the chicken. And I'm like,
It's like, what? You just have to, right? That's funny. It's not leftovers.
No, but then he turns around and buy me a shirt off of Amazon, or I would needed to get a certain kind of light bulb, and he found them and he bought them for me. And I'm like, and so then I try to give him money because he's always paying me for crap. And he's like, I'm not taking your money. And I'm like, okay, well then I'm going to bring dinner on Friday and you're not going to give me any money because you got me these light bulbs. I mean, I have to sit there and talk to him like that.
Right.
You can let me give back to you.
Yes. Right. It's funny. In my opinion, Dr. Rita, can you explain to me, someone can be a true narc personality disorder, yet appear to do nice things, like giving to the poor? And I know it's a strange question. Or can a true narc personality disorder yet appear to do nice things?
That's the facade. You hear stories, and who always comes to mind first thing, well, in my opinion, said she was 62, so she'll get it, is Bing Crosby. Everybody loved Bing Crosby, and he was always the priest in movies and kind and loving, but apparently he was an ogre behind closed doors and really abusive, and so they put the mask on. I mean, that's what they talk about. The mask of the narcissist is you meet somebody new and you're like the most charming, sweet, uplifting, great person on the planet. And then the doors are closed, or you're around people that have known you for a long time, that the true you comes out.
And I think that's part of the issue is it doesn't come out on time. It comes out sometimes or you're just a dumbass. In my case, I was a dumbass. I saw stuff almost right away and kind of went, oh, it's just weird, but it's got to be isolated. Who does this sort of thing?
But I mean, that kind of, we talked a little bit about the whole trauma bonding thing.
Yes.
And with people that are narcissists, they wear you down and they wear you down and they do mean things. And, but then you get upset and you're like, you know what? I'm upset. And so maybe you go off into your room because you need to go heal and you need to kind of figure out what's going on inside,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's when they sit there and go, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to beat the crap out of you and give you a black eye and break your arm. You know, and they will sit there. It's like, I'll never do it again. I swear, you know, and then 3 weeks go by and they're doing the same behavior, you know, and so, but when that happens, okay, so when they are love bombing you, it is filling your body with feel-good hormones, you know, and so it's like you're around them and you feel great and you feel energized and, you know, you have a lot of dopamine and oxytocin in your body, or feel-good hormones, serotonin, that's what I was thinking of.
Yes.
And so that goes on for a long time until something bad happens. And then your cortisol, which is an adrenal stress hormone, kicks in and you come crashing, you know, but then they apologize and you start back up that thing. And so the periods where you crash in the beginning might be really spread out. It might be 2 or 3 months, and then you get that one comment. But then it's for another 2 or 3 months. But then when the mask comes off, they're constantly hitting you and hitting you and hitting you, not physically, but with negative stuff. So it's constantly putting you into that cortisol, but you want to feel good. All you want to do is feel good. And I think that's why I would do so much work on trying to fix my partner, because I would be in such a dopamine, serotonin crisis that I needed them to get better so I could feel better. And, you know, I've never actually thought of that and said that out loud before, but that totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
And y'all heard it here. So
I mean, I remember dating this one guy. I was in college and I was all about this guy. And when I was around him, I flew high. But then he would do things where I would like curl up in a ball, you know, and it felt like he like took my stomach and just like ripped my guts out. You know, and then it would resolve and I would go back up this roller coaster of like emotional high until he ripped my gut out again. I mean, it was palatable. And that was, for me, that was a red flag. You know, like if I'm with you and I'm doing this, I need to stop and take a step back and go, is this good? And is this healthy? Because been on that road.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's almost like they should teach this in high school, or there should be a college course on it.
There's a lot of things that they should teach in high school, and actually, it's not even high school. I think emotional awareness, just that concept of emotional awareness and paying attention to what's going on inside, and not just living life on autopilot. Like, okay, you know. That happened and I'm having an emotional reaction to it, but I can't control it and there's not anything I can do. There is a lot you can do. And if you knew when you were 5 years old how to self-soothe, how to recognize, how to effectively communicate, you know, that we wouldn't be so screwed up.
That's a tall order. Do you think maybe back in the day,
it's really not that hard?
It's not, but it's, I mean, to try to get, you know, any school or anybody to put a course on this, unless it's for adults on the outside, you know, of any sort of actual curriculum. But you remember back in the day,
they can have DEI, why can't they have emotional awareness?
Well, I was thinking before people even got married, or relationship courses. Before you get married, they used to do it back in the day. Blood tests. You have to take a course to see if you were compatible. I mean, boy, I think you picked that up.
Catholic. I don't know if that was kind of everywhere.
No, but it's not a bad idea considering. I mean,
But you know what? If they taught you about emotional awareness and paying attention to what's going on inside, then you would automatically learn about boundaries. And you would automatically learn, like, that person, every time I'm around this person, I feel better, you know, and it would make it so that you could make different choices. And maybe the people that are the narcissists that turn into the narcissists as adults might not be narcissists, because you could sit there and, so my kids, they were stepkids, they were very self-centered, and they drove me crazy. I mean, they drove me crazy because they just were takers. They were big takers. Fortunately, I got them when they were 8 and 10. And my thing their whole time that they were with me was, it's about an equal exchange of energy. So if you're going to borrow a computer game from somebody, you can't give them the crappy computer game that nobody wants. You have to give them like an equal exchange, you know, and you just can't take stuff. And they grew up to be wonderful young men and not takers and compassionate, you know, because, well, one, they read all my self-help books as punishment.
Right. Good. Yeah.
You know, so I think if you get them early enough, you know, they can learn to be more appreciative of other people and not just themselves.
So let's finish off with this final comment. What can parents do? What can we as parents do to prevent, you know, future narcissistic behavior in our children? How can we prevent that?
I mean, that's kind of hard, you know, because there's already so much toxicity in there, you know, and if you have a parent that's a narcissist, if you have a parent that's a sociopath, if you have a parent that's an alcoholic, you're going to be affected by all of that. You know, and that's why, and this is going to sound really weird, and I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff here, that if there was something in the schools or outside of the home, then it's not the parent going, you will comply and be more people pleasing, you know, and there would be more of a support group, and, you know, the emotional needs of the child would be met. I mean, because there are great parents, no doubt about that, you know, but there are parents who spare the rod, you know, and the child ends up growing up to be a narcissist. So they might be loving and caring and whatever, and those are sometimes are the worst. You know, where versus having that outside view, like you were talking about, because if you're a parent, you do not have that outside view.
No, you don't, because your children are perfect. My babies are perfect. But I have to say, you know, considering, you know, the situations, it never rubbed off on them. They were really well adjusted. They did not like the behavior, because they're all adults now. They did not like that behavior, and they broke that cycle. So,
and you can break the cycle. You definitely can break the cycle.
Yeah, I think it's important, you know, because it can be done. You can, you know, prevent the future generations, because, you know, like I have a grandson now too. It's just like, oh, perfect little attachment. I love you. You know, that was my son. We're all just attachments to, you know, to one another. I'm like, I don't care. You're my attachment. And when my grandson was born, I went, look, honey, I have a new attachment to love. He just scowled at me. It's like, so, you know, yeah, I'm a bear poker. Just poke the bear, get what you can out of it. But I'm really pleased that you came on and that we talked about this, because obviously it just resonates with so many people. Still, you know, you have people who just, everybody knows one. Everybody. It's like, just seems to be a thing, you know. It's almost like, I grew up, I didn't hear a lot about this. Not that they didn't exist, it just wasn't talked about. Now it's everywhere. Yeah.
You know, well, it's not that it's everywhere. It's just that now we can point it out. Now there's a level of awareness
Mhm.
about it, where before we just, that was, I'm going to hold the book cover up here a second. I mean,
Yeah.
that was why the lips are so nuts in the cover.
Yeah.
It's because people that are victims of narcissistic abuse often suffer in silence because they will not sit there and express their truth. And I think now there's a lot more permission for people to share that information. Like I if you think about it, if somebody experienced childhood trauma or they were in an abusive relationship, shame kept them from saying anything. And now it's okay, or there's a lot more permission to share your pain and to share your hurt with other people. And it's not something you have to keep in a closet, in a box, underneath the extra blankets anymore.
No, it's very much a part of life, and it's out there. And just for those of you guys who are new to the show, we do have an archive. We have lots of Dr. Rita archives, but the book she was talking about earlier, dang, it was me all along. There is an archive based on that book. We have an interview. It was fantastic, So, I mean, check that out. So, okay, where can everybody find you?
So my webpage is soulhealer.com. That's SOULHEALER, soulhealer.com. And so all of my books are available on that webpage. They're available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual things. But any book you get from me comes autographed. And since I'm the one that puts them in the envelope and puts the tape on it, sometimes you get free DNA samples because inevitably there's a piece of hair that gets stuck in the tape.
Nice. Oh, from Dr. Rita.
It's priceless.
Oh,
and
my
then,
God. I'm glad I wasn't drinking there because I didn't get a drink alert. Yeah.
And then on Thursday nights, right before your show,
yes,
I do what's called Thursday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise. And I open with a topic of something. And after about 15 minutes or so, I open up the phone line, the chat line, because it's just chat, where people can come in and get a free psychic. There, there I'm back. Okay.
Free. That's
it. But people can come and get a free psychic reading. Right. And so right now I only have 2 chat portals available. One is on Facebook. And so if you want to find me on Facebook, I'm Dr. Rita Louise -Live. It's a group. Join that group. But the easiest place and where the biggest number of people go so you can actually see the chat is on YouTube. And that's my YouTube channel is Just Energy Radio on YouTube. The 3 words, Just Energy Radio. And you'll see a poodle with a tinfoil hat. That would be mine. And Thursday night, 7 p.m., you just hit the live link and it'll open the chat right up for you. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And this is what you get full on. Every Thursday night, you get full on Dr. Rita.
Well, they can come hang out with me and then switch over and hang out with you.
See? We're fun.
We are fun.
I know. We'll have to figure out, what are you writing next? When can we bring you back?
So right now, I'm working on a series of pieces, which I'm very passionate about, but I've been sick. So no, I ended up with this, it's a whole long story, but I think I had a medication side effect, which made this giant head congestion. And anyway. Yeah. I'm on the mend of that, so thank God.
Yes.
But I'm doing a series of articles about, is Google devaluing your alternative health website? And it gets into web page stuff, but it gets into the whole what Google is looking for if you are an alternative health practitioner or you sell an alternative health product. And then this whole deep dive, I think it's going to be 3 articles. The deep dive is into the whole background conspiracy of the AMA and blah, 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 blah.
So in other words, it's one of those shows that will not remain on YouTube.
Probably not.
Great for, yeah. So,
Probably not.
very nice. No, you'll definitely have to connect with us when you get that together. We might put that in because for those who don't know, we actually have a spin-off show that takes place Tuesday afternoons. Well, I share the time slot. I share it with a colleague of mine. So three Tuesdays a month, we've got Beyond the Outer Realm for the special editions and uncensored shows.
That's the one I want to be on.
That's the one we're going to do. So, yeah. So lots of fun. Lots of fun. So,
But it's just been really interesting. Like, there's a lot. I'll give you a tickler. There is a lot of material that Google, not Bing, not Yahoo, uses to evaluate a website. And then based on their judgment, will put you somewhere in the search ranking. So they don't get rid of you, but they bury you if they don't like who you are.
Bum, bum, bum. See, we're already learning something. We know that. We know where that show's going to go. I say we do it. Let's have some daytime afternoon shenanigans.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right, I love that. I love that. So everybody, thank you guys as always for tuning in. Lots of new faces tonight. I love it when you all hang out. Remember, you can catch this on multiple archive sites when the show is done. It'll take a bit for the producer to get it up there. Somebody's offsite filming for a couple of days, the nerve. But anyway, that's what he's doing. Tomorrow night, we welcome back David Stig Hansen for part 2, and he's going to be talking about Atlantis in North America, because that apparently could be a thing. And before that, we've got another, couple of, we've got a lot of good shows on, but you can start your afternoon off at 3 p.m. Eastern with Paranormal Insight with Tim Sudano. Tomorrow's open mic. A lot of ghost stories from the Paranormal Insight files. So you're definitely going to want to check it out. Then you check out Ethereal Unveiled, and that's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Always great guests. I've been on it, a few times, just saying. So yeah, always great. Anyway, we just all love each other over here. And then we've got Foot at the End of the Bed, which is right before our show. So whole lineup. You can spend the whole evening just getting on different chat rooms and bantering and having a wonderful time. So guys, thank you to Folgers Coffee. Thank you to all of you guys. Thank you to Dr. Rita Louise, of course. Big thank you to Dr. Snick. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis, all of our incredible sponsors. Big thank you, United Public Radio, UFO Paranormal, 105.3, 107.7 FM. I think I got it all. Good night, and we shall see you tomorrow evening. Bye-bye.